Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Epi coming at you with something a little different. As many of you may know, in the past couple of months or even years, we've had a few issues with a few of our top pros getting DDoSed, for example. And it was back then that a lot of us were not very much aware that Skype was a potential vulnerability. And, cybersecurity is, from my point of view, a huge fucking deal, especially for our generation that is still growing up in that transitionary period where, the internet and everything has been relatively new, because I feel people that grow up with all these things already in place will probably be at a slight disadvantage when it comes to figuring the whole thing out. So what we have going on, who I have as a guest right now, is someone who I have a great deal of respect for, and I'm very, very happy that we got him on the show. And it is Sir Eijah from Demonsaw, and I'm just going to get him on live on the air right now. Eijah, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh man, the pleasure's all mine. I've been crunching interviews and everything, and I'm a huge fan and very interested in the whole thing. And you are right in the mix of the IT hemisphere of all the things that are going on right now. Just to get the viewers up to speed, you are pretty much the lead and only developer of a huge thing called Demonsaw that we're going to be speaking on in just a bit. You are personal friends with people like Kim.com and John McAfee. And you also attended just recently this huge convention. What was the name of it again? I'm sorry.
DEF CON.
Yeah, DEF CON, exactly. I watch all of these talks as well, watch your talks on there as well. So this is, I'm going to provide all your viewers with a bunch of links, and I want to get you interested in the field that Eijah is active in. So welcome to the show. Do you have some connection with gaming as well, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I spent until I went full time for Demonsaw last October. I spent the last 7 years as a game programmer. The first two of which I worked for Activision, worked on Guitar Hero. So
Mm-hmm.
Guitar Hero. Let me see, 5, Guitar Hero 6. I was the lead programmer, and then Band Hero. I did that one as well. So 3 titles there, and then the last 5 years I worked for Rockstar Games. Made a little tiny game you may have heard or played called Grand Theft Auto 5.
Fuck
So I was
yeah.
I was I was one of the lead programmers on that, and spent about 9 months in Scotland working with the studio over there, as well as produced Max Payne 3. Did a lot of code. Was a senior programmer on Max Payne 3 as well. Which, by the way, if your viewers haven't played Max Payne 3, it's a brilliant game. I actually prefer it over GTA 5. It was an underrated, underappreciated game, but some of the game mechanics in it are as near to flawless as can possibly be. And keep in mind, I'm not getting any royalties off the game, so this is just me as a gamer. But yeah, I have about 7 years as a game programmer, so I definitely can speak to that.
Sick. And how did was let me just newbly call it cybersecurity. Has that always been an interest of yours, or how did that kind of come up in your life?
Well, it's funny, and I'm glad you brought that up because the convergence of game programming and cybersecurity doesn't really happen much. In fact, it's a
Hmm.
rarity, but it does overlap. I started my career working for American Express. It just happened to be in their information security department. So I kind of naturally, as a junior programmer, got brought into the world of of the CTO organization and the CISO organization. So some of the information security stuff,
Mm-hmm.
compliance reporting, and SOCs and application security vulnerabilities, and how to outsmart the hackers. And so I kind of became accustomed to that world, uh, really from the first 2 to 4 years of my career. And then from there, I expanded into more traditional programming roles, eventually going to work into gaming, teaching at community colleges, very, very hands-on programming until I went to Rockstar. And to be honest, I always thought that the two upper tiers of programming echelon were always cybersecurity, so hacking. In
Mm-hmm.
order to be a hacker, you almost have to be good at an infinite number of things. You have to be very, very broad, and then yet your knowledge has to be deep enough so that you can hold your own. And then the other one, in parallel to that, would be game programming. Same thing goes with game programmers. You have to be very knowledgeable across many, many disciplines, especially as an engine programmer, which is what I did for Rockstar Games. So
Mm.
the lower level code, the streaming, the memory, the rendering, the graphics, API integration with Sony and Microsoft. Really the low level stuff that scares most programmers. It always excited me. So the two worlds just kind of combined, and then for me, I was always interested in both. I thought that security was way too complicated. I thought that, making a video game like GTA 5 is a lot of work. It's about 5 million lines of code. 4 to 5 million goes into a game like GTA
Mm.
5. And a game like that takes about 5 years to make and upwards of 1,000 people working on it. In fact, we had 1,000 near the end of the development cycle. So it's extremely complex to write that game. And security is also complex. The people creating algorithms and ciphers and hashes. These are guys who dedicate. These are guys and ladies who dedicate their lives to this, the cryptography, and so that is hard. But the using of cryptography and cryptographic primitives should not be so complex. I mean,
Mm.
to an end user, it should be easy to pull up an app and have a very, very secure connection that doesn't rely on companies and governments that promise to make us safe. So my two worlds kind of combined in Scotland when I was launching GTA 5 on PS3 and 360. I had a couple week downtime as we were about to launch, and I started thinking about what I wanted different in my life, what applications I wanted, and I wasn't happy with Dropbox. And to be honest, Demonsaw would have never happened had Dropbox not been greedy. And I think no, and I was running out of space. They give you like 2 gigs. They
Yeah.
nickel and dime you to death, and then they want you to refer people like some sort of bizarre pyramid scheme. And so I looked at upgrading to a premium service, and they wanted $100 a year. And I
Oh.
thought, dear God, this is ridiculous. I can write something better. So had Dropbox not been so greedy and treated its business model like a pyramid scheme, I would have never made Demonsaw. And the same thing goes to Rockstar. Had I not been refined by the fires of the greatness
Mm-hmm.
that is Rockstar Games, their devs are awesome. The company is awesome. I love Rockstar. I had to resign there because of Demonsaw, but I missed them every single day, and I left on very, very good terms. But they are a great company. They took me and my skills to the next level. So
Yeah,
I
from
like
what I
this.
heard is that there's a lot of mutual respect in that relationship, and
Yeah,
that the way they that you left Rockstar was not at all the typical way that someone that's so entrenched in the heart of
right.
the IT would leave.
Right. No, not at all. It was my very last day, just to give your readers an idea. They didn't walk me out. They didn't give me a box. They didn't disable my network access. And keep in mind, I had access to all of their source code,
Mm.
all of it, including the yet to be announced games that I still will not talk about because I'm loyal to Rockstar. But I had full access to everything. The president of the studio walked up to me around 5:36 at night. He's like, "I need to collect your fob. Come back anytime you want. Whenever you're done tonight, just leave, but stay as long as you want." And okay, that's huge, and that's the respect I have for them. Without without GTA 5 and without the bonus money that they gave me on GTA 5, I would have never been able to fund Demonsaw. I would have never been able to pay for the servers, to pay for the stickers, the T-shirts, my trips to DEF CON. The list goes on and on and on. And so Demonsaw is free for you guys because I'm using my bonus money and some of my Rockstar bonus money to pay for it.
Mm.
What better use could I have of money that I never realized I would have, that was a gift from Rockstar because we worked so hard and the game did so well? Why not use it for something good? And
Yeah.
so I just kind of reallocated it for Demon Saw. But the irony in all this is, yeah, if Dropbox hadn't been greedy, I wouldn't have been so motivated to make Demon Saw. And if Rockstar hadn't been so generous and such an amazing company, I wouldn't have been good enough and had the financial means enough to make Demon Saw. So I think it's just the evolution of life, and I have only the highest respect for Rockstar Games. Great company, I love them and I miss them.
Oh, awesome, man. So let's the topic that we're covering is so very broad, and I figured let's start with the product. You relatively recently launched the third iteration of Demon Saw.
Right.
If even this third iteration you completely wrote by yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that's I'm a pretty good programmer. I mean, I still make many mistakes.
Oh, I believe it.
I've only been programming for about uh 20 years or so,
Hmm.
and there's always so much to learn, but at a certain point in your career, you become very comfortable with your abilities, and that doesn't mean you know everything. In fact, I'll be the first to admit there's so much I don't know. Like I would be such a fanboy if I met Bjarne Strovstrop, the creator of C++. If I ever met
Mm-hmm.
him in person, I would basically be on my knees, almost to the point of worshiping him, because I would have so much to ask him and to
You would
learn.
geek out, hey?
I would totally geek out. Easy. Um, but the thing is, you get to a point where you no longer fear the unknown, and there's a difference between saying you know everything or being arrogant and just no longer fearing the unknown. You've gone through enough fires and tribulation in your life where you know you've got past those, so you're not afraid of what's coming before. It doesn't mean you know everything. It doesn't mean you won't have to work your ass off, and it doesn't mean you might struggle at the 11th hour swearing up a storm, trying to put the last feature in. But you know that the road ahead has fewer challenges than the road behind, and so
Mm-hmm.
that allows one to have a certain degree of confidence. And like I said, it's not arrogance. It's not believing in the abilities that don't exist. It's just historical data has shown that you managed all the other times, and so the probability of you managing in the future is increased.
Oh, for sure. Okay, yeah, that's a very nice way to look at it. Um, so, could you give us like a quick elevator pitch for the people interested in what Demonsaw is and not knowing, haven't heard of it before, what the product is in its core?
Sure. Well, at its very core, what Demonsaw does is it gives you, as the customer or the end user, full control of your data and your security and the configuration of your network. The best way to think about Demonsaw is it's a secure and anonymous application that protects your privacy, but it's not hosted on any companies, there's no centralization, and it's not peer-to-peer. So it's almost analogous to a private cloud that meets a private VPN. But the beauty of Demonsaw is you can download it and you can set up your own private sharing network where you can securely communicate or share files with as many people as you want. Strangers, friends, family, colleagues, anyone. Businesses can use it. Individuals can use it. There's no ads. I don't even have a donate button on the site. Like I said, because Rockstar was so generous with me, I wanted to return the favor.
Hmm.
You can use Demonsaw over a totally insecure public Wi-Fi at Starbucks, and I can put so much security on the transmission of the data that Snowden could have used it to send Glenn Greenwald all of the top secret documents while drinking his latte at Starbucks. You don't need a secure private channel like VPNs anymore. Demonsaw creates a VPN on the fly, but it gives you full control. So I don't host any servers. I don't log anything. Once you download the software, you can use it however you want. And because it's not peer-to-peer and because it's not centralized, it really mimics the way that the internet backbone, the lower levels of the internet works. Traffic is routed among different routers that basically just simply forward encrypted packets. They don't know what the data is, and so the clients never directly interact, just like you and I, when we're browsing the web, never directly interact with
Hmm.
each other. Well, all of our data gets maybe eventually gets routed to each other, but I don't know necessarily where you are, and I don't have direct access to you. So it's a decentralized, non-peer-to-peer network that really gives you full control. It's a unique shift of network design, which at first kind of confuses some people. It's like, how can it be not centralized and how can it not be peer-to-peer? I thought it had to be one or the other. Well, kind of the falsehood that's been put on us the last 10 years or so is that in order to be decentralized, you have to be peer-to-peer. And I argue against that because the internet is a complete stateless decentralized network, and yet it's not peer-to-peer. If you look at routers and how the network hubs are set up, different spokes and different hubs, it's merely a collection of routers that forward packets. And so that's pretty much what I designed in Demonsaw to mimic at a much higher layer in the OSI stack.
So this is actually one thing that I wrote down in my notes to use with this opportunity that I have speaking with you. As someone who has been around computers his whole life, but is not very knowledgeable as far as the architecture goes and the mechanics of how the whole thing functions, is I wanted to ask you if you could, is it possible, and if could you make an effort to try and explain the uniqueness of Demonsaw and how you. So what I understood now is that you essentially mimic how the internet works when it comes
Right.
to transfer of data.
Right.
How is that different from, for example, Skype? Me using Skype to talk to you, and how does it not compromise the data? Like if I chat with someone else on Demonsaw, how does this method make the communication secure?
Sure. Well, a lot of the security is defined by the end user. So you define how secure you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to share cat pics with me versus top secret documents, that's going to be different layers of security. So you may enter more of a paranoia mode with the top secret documents than you do sharing cat pics.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're sharing pictures of your children or your family with loved ones, you may want to be somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the way to think about it is as a defensive hacker, I enjoy creating applications that subvert technologies like firewalls.
Mm-hmm.
So what Demonsaw does is it uses normal HTTP traffic. Its protocol is totally HTTP compliant. So all the Demonsaw traffic pretty much looks like standard web browser traffic.
Mm-hmm.
There's some slight differences, but pretty much it fools firewalls. So just to give you an example, you can use Demonsaw from China right now, or from Iran. It'll just go through the Great Wall of a Great Firewall of China,
Mm.
and just for the longest time, firewalls and proxies and other firewall technologies like Palo Alto weren't able to detect Demonsaw 2.0. They finally wrote a rule for it, but I've added some extra hooks in 3.0 that obfuscates and hides that even more. So number one is it looks like web traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is you control the network. So let's say you and I want to chat together, but none of us really trust the other.
Mm-hmm.
So what we would do is we trust each other just enough to enter a secure group. So a secure group is, think of a whistleblower and think of a reporter type scenario. So if you're Edward Snowden and I'm Glenn Greenwald, and when they first encountered each other, neither trusted the other.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a variety of handshakes that reporters and whistleblowers do. Maybe there's a dead drop where I hand you a sticky note. Maybe the next thing is I send you a text. Maybe the next thing is we exchange public keys. And the list goes on and on. But there's a variety of stages that we will vet each other in order to have a level of confidence enough so that we could start sharing information. A similar thing happens with joining private groups on Demonsaw. So you and I will share some sort of information that we use to derive a lot of really, really strong encryption keys. But we don't know about the encryption keys. We don't have passwords or passphrases or user IDs or public keys. We don't have all these complex things. Rather, what we do is we know of an image that's online, or we know of a series of web pages that's online. Maybe rockstar.com, rockstargames.com.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the picture of your favorite cat pic that's on Instagram. So there's some sort of data.
Monorail cat, by the way.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So there's some sort of sets of ones and zeros out there. It could be on a flash drive that we exchanged in the New York subway at 3 a.m. one night.
Uh-huh.
But there's some ones and zeros that we both have in our possession through some sort of prearranged means.
Mm-hmm.
We use those ones and zeros essentially as a passphrase. Instead of remembering something like today is a good day to die, a famous Klingon quote. Instead of remembering that, because let's face it, our human brains are not meant to remember passwords and passphrases. But I bet we remember the websites that we go to every day.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that we remember, the last search we did in Google. I bet there are things that we remember without even trying, but will be difficult.
Like that sick Eijah talk at DEF CON.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many things. And the fact that we want to group up together and communicate already means that we probably have some sort of context that we share, some sort of information that we already have in common. Like right now, we share the fact that we're on this call. We share the fact that we reached out via Skype. We share the fact that we're both gamers. There's so many things we already shared, and you and I barely met.
Mm.
Imagine if we've known each other for a year or two or three. I mean, the amount of contextual awareness that we would share is very, very large. And so by using this shared knowledge, we no longer have to exchange keys or passphrases or things of that nature.
If I may
It's
hook
like,
in very quickly, excuse
oh
me,
yes, yeah,
how
no, go ahead.
how do I or how do you rather turn like this cat picture into like a password?
Well, it's the cat picture is essentially a really, really big passphrase or a really, really big password.
Hmm.
Inside, if you open up the cat pic in Notepad, it's a binary file, but it has a bunch of weird, weird characters.
Hmm.
Those all equate to bytes. That's just a string of bytes, and a byte is just going to be 8 bits. So every byte's going to be, have a certain finite number of characters that can be represented in 8 bits. And so it's really just the same information in binary or textual format. The fact that you and I can read a string like today is a good day to die and interpret it as a Klingon or Star Trek expression
Hmm.
really is just a contextual linking to a past memory.
Hmm.
We watch Star Trek. Star Trek used that phrase. We equate it to the past phrase. It's now a mnemonic device that links to some sort of burned in memory in our mind, but it's still binary data, is what it is. It's
Hmm.
ones and zeros. So a cat pic is really just a really long, intangible string, is really how it's represented.
Mm.
So I use that as a passphrase through a variety of cryptographic, um, standard NIST approved cryptographic routines like PBKDF2 and ciphers and hashes to derive a password, or excuse me, to derive a key that I then feed into a cipher such as an AES encryption algorithm, etc.
Hmm.
It's really, at the end of the day, everything in the world online, everything online, the internet, everything on our hard drive is just a one or a zero and a string of ones and zeros. It can all be broken down into that
Mm.
because that's how computers only speak in base two. They know there's 2 letters in their alphabet, is a zero and a one.
That's
That's it.
insane. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So when you break it down to its core, it's a simple problem to solve. But that's what I love most about Demon Saws. We can be sitting on opposite sides of the world, and we can encrypt very, very sensitive files over Starbucks Wi-Fi with known honeypotted routers. So we can be using routers that the NSA has pwned, completely pwned.
Hmm.
And because of our strong levels of crypto, it will take them hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of years to brute force our encryption because we share intimate knowledge that they don't. They would have to social engineer that information out of us. It's like that scene from the movie Hackers. You remember from the mid 90s
Hmm.
when the phone freak, the skinny guy was being pulled away by the feds. He's being hauled off by the FBI, and he turns around and he shouts at Acid Burn, who's Angelina Jolie. He says, "Remember that one time, that one place where I put
Hmm.
that one thing?" So she knows exactly to go into the high school boys' locker room, reach behind the condom dispenser, and pull out the floppy disk, but nobody else does. It's because they share intimate knowledge that, without the context, has zero meaning. And that's what I've done with Demon Saw.
So it's essentially the approach. Could it be, I guess, summarized as that you don't care if people get the traffic, because it's just
Exactly.
okay. You've just encrypted it over and over and in a very very strong manner.
Exactly. Now, for people who care about that, because obviously you don't want to send your data through honeypotted and compromised boxes if you can avoid it.
Hmm.
If it's thoroughly encrypted, then the likelihood that anybody will brute force it is low. But for people who are worried about compromise of endpoints and what we call, honeypots and things of that nature, you can host your own routers. And that's the beautiful part of Demon Saw is I don't force you into any box. I don't say, like WhatsApp and Dropbox are great examples. WhatsApp does end-to-end encryption as long as you go through its servers.
Hmm.
Why? Because WhatsApp only gets financial benefit if we continue to use its services. If it simply provided an app that we could download and use outside of its services, it would quickly become non-essential. It would quickly no longer be needed. So what I do at Demonsaw, and same thing with Dropbox. Dropbox gives us the app as long as we go through their servers. I've done the opposite. I've given you the app, and I said, use it however you want. I don't have an infrastructure that you have to go through. So you can host your own private network. And people do this. Hackers do this. There's an example of I don't know where he is, New York, I guess, or California, where this gentleman uses Demonsaw to distribute. Now, this is legally, by the means. This is all legally according to state law. He distributes medical marijuana to his patients using Demonsaw because they feel more comfortable communicating in a secure environment, just because it's still a sensitive topic at the federal level,
Oh
even
yeah,
though
wow.
it's legal at the state. So that's just a unique example of how people are using Demonsaw in ways I've never intended. Um, so people can host their own networks and they can do anything with Demonsaw. And that's the key thing about Demonsaw that's different than the WhatsApp and the Dropbox is very, very soon we are no longer going to need these corporations that make millions and billions off of housing our data. The future of the internet is going to be one of decentralization, but even more important, we're not going to need the middleman anymore. The middleman is going to become unnecessary, and this should scare the Googles. This should scare the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Dropbox, the Skypes of the world. Because as soon as we don't need their services and their centralization and their cloud, they have nothing. They have nothing of value except software, and software is cheap to purchase and license compared to a recurring cloud bill and hosting
Mm,
bill. And that's
wow.
that's the key to Demonsaw, and that's why they're scared of what I'm doing, and that's why it's so exciting. Because why not create something that completely innovates and revolutionizes the internet going forward?
Yeah, why not if you're able to?
Well,
um,
yeah, I was in a unique situation too because Rockstar provided for me financially and gave me some very nice bonuses because you guys bought so many copies of GTA 5, which by the way, thank you. Um, 60 million plus now. Um,
wow.
but we worked our asses off on that game, and I think it definitely shows on all five platforms.
Mm,
But I was in a unique situation where I thought, why not try something different? Why not create a company and create an app that completely deviates from the established norm of how business must be done? I can't tell you the number of times I spoke to investors or had people email me or tweet at me saying, how are you going to monetize Demonsaw? And I told them, I'm like, I'm not. And it blew their minds. They said, what? What? You have to, are you going to put ads up? Are you going to have a premium? I'm like, nope. I'm not going to do anything. You're never going to have to pay for Demonsaw. I might not fully open source it to you. It's only partially open source, but I'm not going to make you pay for it, and I'm not going to have plans to monetize it. And they said, why not? It's because I said, I don't need to. I
hmm.
don't need to. Everybody, there are plenty of apps that are trying to nickel and dime us. Look at uTorrent. uTorrent did terrible, terrible things with forcing, bit mining, installing bit mining and bundling software, and now charging to remove the ads for $5 a year. Are we really going to create $1 billion company by forcing people to pay forcing individual people, hardworking people like you and I, to pay $5 a year for software that should be free? No, that's not how you make $1 billion business, uTorrent. That's how you piss off your customer base. Here's how you make $1 billion business. You create awesome technology that innovates, that is received very well, that gives people something that they don't have, that fills a void in their life. And then what you do is you make a business version and you make the same offering to corporations plus more and more business enterprise features. And then they pay for that. That's how you make money. Is you go to the businesses, but you don't make the average consumers, hardworking, citizens of this world to pay for something. That's not $1 billion path to
Mm.
success. The companies are what you do, or what you go at, and that's the model I've taken.
Yeah, and there's a product that you have for that. We're going to speak on that in just a sec. There's one question that actually came to my mind that I want to get out there very quickly, because I feel like that idea of using uh, already existing content instances as passphrases, that's ingenious idea. Do you remember how that came about?
Well, thank you. It was funny because when I lived in, as I mentioned, I lived in Scotland for the last 9 months of the PS3 and 360 GTA 5 development cycle.
Mm-hmm.
They invited me out there. I was a key member of the team. And, as a single guy, I thought, what do I have to lose? I've never been to Edinburgh. Why not? So I went out there, and there were two things to do in Scotland, at least to my knowledge. Maybe I'm a bit naive, but either I could work or I could go to the pubs. And sometimes you did both during the same block of time. So
Uh-huh.
what people would do is they would work their 8, 9, 10 hours. For me, it was more like 12 hours. And then you'd leave and you go to the pub for 2, 3, 4, and then you'd stumble home and then you'd repeat the process. And as I was thinking about Demonsaw, I was hating on Dropbox, and I was trying to figure out as a programmer I can do something better. I was thinking about passwords in general. Like, inadequacy breeds innovation. And this is
Mm-hmm.
something I said in one of my
Yes.
DEF CON talks. If we're using a product and we have to layer new products on top of it in order for it to still be a viable product,
Mm-hmm.
then that tells me it's inadequate. Either it started that way or it evolved to a state of inadequacy because
Mm-hmm.
it didn't adapt, it didn't evolve enough, fast enough. And we see that with passwords. How do we know that? How many of your users have key managers and password managers out there? So
Mm.
we have 1,000 different passwords across websites that all have different password requirements, and all some of which want us to change the password at certain frequencies and deny us the use of the last 10 passwords. And we have secret questions and answers, and now we have pictures that we have to associate. It's insane the amount of crap we have to go through just to get access to our bank account info.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that's inadequate. That's inadequacy right there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about just my mom. My mom's very, very smart, but she has trouble remembering all of her passwords across all of the websites. And she's not a very heavy internet user like a lot of your listeners
Mm-hmm.
are, and me and you. And so what she'll do is she'll do what most of us have done in the past. We'll write the passwords down on a sticky note or in a little notebook, or we'll use the same password, or we'll do very insecure practices.
Yes.
So it unfortunately, by trying to force people into a more secure practice with respect to password and security best practices, we actually devolve the state and make everything less secure because people are, well, part of it is we're inherently lazy, but the other part is our brains are not built to remember ones and zeros. We're not computers.
Mm-hmm.
Our memory is based on mnemonic devices and the mapping of a pre-established memory to a new memory. And it's much easier just to link a new memory to a past memory than it is to create a brand new memory that's isolated in our brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about ones and zeros. So when I thought about how I hate using password managers and how difficult it was my mother was remembering her passwords,
Mm-hmm.
I realized, what has the internet become? The internet, for the most part today, is totally different than it was 15 and 20 years ago. 15 and 20 years ago, it was individual users interacting with a central authority, logging into your bank account, logging into your 401k, logging into your whatever, your FTP. Now the internet is about social networking.
Mm-hmm.
It's about bringing groups of people together, either dynamically or for more permanent static basis. It's the Twitters, it's the Instagrams, it's the Facebooks, it's the Demon Saws, it's the Dropboxes, it's things of that nature. So we interact more herd-like today than we did 15, 20 years ago. And so one could argue maybe password-based authentication or certificate-based authentication is really not the best approach for more aggregate and dynamic group association models that we see in the social networking world. And so that's what I started thinking about. Well, is there something else that we can use to derive our strong encryption keys
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't require the user to be forced into a certain box? And that's when I thought about hackers. I thought about the movie Hackers.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about the phone freak. And I thought about acid burn. And I thought about, huh, she figured out the disk was behind the condom dispenser in the boys' locker room without without Phone Freak ever saying anything of substance.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could do this with file sharing and secure communication.
Crazy. And I think I remember hearing of this concept. I think it was your second DEF CON talk, where you explained this very concept as well. And I was sitting. It was late at night, and I was sitting here, and I remember just being blown the f away. I thought, holy effing shit! Like, it's really I think it's really revolutionary, and I can see it. I wish you all the best of success. So I did very interesting to get that background knowledge there.
Well, thank you. It's an interesting. I get usually one of two different responses when I talk about social crypto, which is kind of what I coined this derivation of strong encryption from social awareness and social context. I either get the your response, which is, holy shit, this could be used for so many things, to, oh, that's just obvious. So all you're doing is reading a file. So it was one of two responses, and I think both. I mean, to be honest, I think both are accurate, because some of the greatest ideas in the history of humankind, when analyzed in retrospect, really don't seem that amazing right now. Like, E equal MC squared. When we look on superficially at Einstein's ideas
Mm-hmm.
about the curvature of the universe, some of us are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. How space and time have kind of merged. We can at least empathize at a very superficial level. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I could see,
Yeah.
planets go around the solar objects. Okay, great. It seems simple, but when you break down beneath that level, things are so complex, neither you or I would probably ever be able to understand them, unless we devote the next 10, 20 years to be an astrophysicist. And that's the same thing with social cryptos. When you really look at it superficially, it's like, oh, okay, ones and zeros, got it. But when you really look at the applications and just how you can totally change how we interface cryptographically with everything in the world, it totally it kind of it opens a door to a whole new parallel universe
Yeah,
for
and I
what we
also
can
think
do
it's
in
kind of a
life.
fallacy to go from, yeah, I can understand the concept that this guy is explaining to me, that kind of equates to almost saying, yeah, I could have come up with that. Like, actually coming up with that is such a huge deal, even if it's an
Yeah.
understandable concept.
A funny story related to that is, I'm sure you're going to ask me about my relationship with John and
Yeah.
Kim.com and Clear Skies and stuff, but I did want to say, if something funny. So I met John about a year and a half ago now, and we met, we hit it off really well. John and I are extremely close. He's like a brother to me. He's a
Hmm.
very, very close friend, and um, I was building Demonsaw 2.0 at the time, and it was 8 weeks to DEF CON. And of course, I launch a new version every year at DEF CON. Not really sure why. It just started that way, and I've continued the trend. But 8 weeks before DEF CON, I told John, I'm like, so keep in mind, the 2.0 client wasn't even written.
Hmm.
It was in C sharp still, and I was still porting it to C++. Social crypto was theoretical at that point. I didn't actually write the social crypto algorithms and code until 3 weeks before DEF CON last year.
Hoy.
So it was 3 weeks before 2.0 was launched. Social crypto was all theory. And I had told John, I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna totally work. I have no doubt. The reality of all that is it was all theoretical, and I had no idea if it was actually going to do what I thought it would, three
Hmm.
weeks before DEF CON. So sometimes, even the inventor, or even the people that are the visionaries, uh, aren't really quite sure that an idea is going to pan out. And there's nothing like waiting until the 11th hour to write the code and then sit back and say, oh, yeah, yeah, it totally worked. No, I had no doubt at all.
What
So
were some of the major challenges that you faced in that short time span when you kind of realized social crypto?
Well, it was the Demon Saw development cycle is very much like the documentary 6 Days to Air. I don't know if you've seen that documentary. It's the making of South Park.
No, I have not.
Okay, if you haven't seen
Writing
Six
it down.
Days 6 days. I think it's called the making 6 days to air the making of South Park.
Uh-huh.
It used to be on Netflix, but I'm sure you can find it through a variety of different online distribution channels. But it is about how Trey and Matt make every episode of South Park in 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
They have nothing. They go from zero to hero in 6 days. They come up with the concepts. Everything's animated. The voice is done, and they have a finished product by the end of the 6 day. It's an insane schedule, and the documentary shows the episode of the what is it? The human Sentai pad,
Mm-hmm.
where it was the take on the human centipede and the iPad, but it shows it shows that creation of that episode.
Mm-hmm.
But every point in the 6 days, it was frantic and chaotic, and they had doubt at every single step of the way. And you'll even say them saying it sometimes, this is the worst piece of shit I've ever created. And yet they still make it. So the Demonsaw development cycle for me leading up to DEF CON is always like that. It's 14 to 16 hours of coding
Mm-hmm.
every day for months on end. For Demonsaw 3.0, it was about 6 months of anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day of coding. That's all I did for
Holy shit.
6 months. So if you download a Demonsaw 3.0, literally zero to what you see now in 6 months, just me coding.
Wow.
And that was me rewriting almost all of 2.0. 2.0 took me about a year to make, and that was a port from the C Sharp with new features like social crypto. And then 1.0 took me a year to make, and that was the first C Sharp version.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's this mad rush, and every day there's doubt, every day there's fear, every day there's anxiety. The challenges are real, and as the only programmer on Demonsaw, there are these moments of sheer panic when I think I have no fucking idea how I'm going to solve this problem, but I got to solve it in the next hour and 20 minutes
Oh, wow.
if I want to stay on schedule. And so there's these moments where like I almost all the blood leaves my face and I panic. But that's the thing about panicking is one of two things can happen. You can shut down and fail, or the adrenaline can kick in and thoughts can come to your mind, new ideas can come quickly, and you can take a different approach. You can pivot and iterate and solve, or you can panic. I have my private pilot's license, and when I was training to fly a plane, my instructor told me a lot of people think flying is more dangerous than driving a car. He said it's not. Flying is not any more dangerous than driving a car. It's just less forgiving of mistakes.
Mm.
And that's what the Demonsaw development cycle is like. It's no more dangerous than any or scary than any normal development cycle. It's just less forgiving of those mistakes that happen when we panic and we let chaos rule us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that. If you just keep that under wraps, you can achieve greatness in a small amount of time. But once again, I can only do this because Rockstar taught me to be an outstanding dev, as well as all the things in my past. I mean, it really is trial by fire.
Hmm. What what was the 1/3 that you kept going from Demonsaw 2 to 3?
That's a great question. Well, a lot of the most of the stuff I kept was the foundational. It's called the entity component system.
Mm-hmm.
It is this idea that everything in Demonsaw is an entity. So if you create a new client or you create a new router or you are transferring a file or you're sending a chat, everything is an entity. So the entity is really just a shell. It's an empty shell.
Mm-hmm.
And then you attach components to the entity that define the entity. It's funny because this is a common design and architectural pattern for game development. Some of your listeners out there will be saying, oh, yeah, we use this for building an XNA game, or we use this for building a Unity or a Unreal game. I used the entity component system framework for building out Demonsaw because it was adaptive and flexible and was very, very modular. That entire system I was able to basically copy and paste because I'd really designed it well enough in 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really was the bulk of it. There was a lot of UI that I was able to port directly over, even though the UI looks totally different. A lot of the UI design concepts were saved. So a lot of it was either some of the really, really low level stuff, like some of the socket code, or some of the really, really high level stuff like the UI panes and things. Everything in between was pretty much rewritten, including all the crypto.
All right, that's very interesting. Um, Now let's switch over to monetization. You mentioned that for all your people, you want them to not pay any money. You don't collect any data, and that was my experience installing Demonsaw. I never once saw an ad. I never once saw a donate button. You never asked for my email. I
Right,
was just able to download, install, use.
right,
And now you're going to go into the corporate market, and that the
right.
product is called Clear Sky.
Clear skies,
Clear
yes.
Skies.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and and one more thing I wanted to add to is
Absolutely, go ahead.
there's not even an install for Demonsaw. You probably noticed you didn't even there was no installation. There's no writing to the registry.
Yes,
There's
I
you
just opened it. Yeah, I
Yep,
just.
you literally you could put it on a flash drive. It's totally portable. It doesn't write to a directory somewhere. It doesn't leave a fingerprint. I mean, it really is like you use it however you want. So that was my goal. Is I was tired of applications abusing our privacy. So I wanted to make what I wanted in apps from a privacy perspective. I wanted to create an app that I would be proud to download and use if I had not been the creator.
Yeah, and there comes a quote to mind. I wrote it down. I want an app. I want an app that I wanted other companies to build for me, and that's essentially what you did with Demonsaw. Insane. And it's crazy to think that I could, depending on how bad I am, you could essentially put it on a stick, go to like any super secure. If I'm an employee somewhere, stick it in there, and
Right.
and then just transfer the data. It's
Yep.
insane.
Oh, it is. I mean, and it's like that quote from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. Obviously, I did not create Demonsaw for people to do bad things with it,
Hmm.
but I do understand that um, we can't have freedom without free will, without the ability to choose good and bad.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not freedom. And so I do understand. I'm not naive. I do understand that people will use Demonsaw for bad purposes, just like people will use a car for bad purposes or a shovel for bad purposes. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we should get rid of all shovels because a murderer used a shovel once to kill somebody.
Absolutely.
So it's the same concept. It goes back. It's personal responsibility takes over, and so I created Demon Saw with the belief that most people are good-natured people, are law-abiding citizens, and they're going to use it in a responsible and a good manner. And that's my hope. But
Hmm.
I do understand that free will is just that, the ability to choose good or bad. And so it doesn't change my approach to Demon Saw at all. There's nothing I can do to punish people if they use it in the wrong way. I don't log. I don't know their IP. I don't control anything. I don't even know how many people download it. I all I know is I've got hundreds and thousands of people that tell me they love it.
Hmm.
But I don't honestly, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that there's 43,719 current users of Demon Saw because I'm not going to monetize it.
Hmm.
So for me, even if I were the only user of Demon Saw, I would still keep making it. I made it originally to solve my personal needs, and then I realized that, hey, well, maybe it could also help other people. And so even if there were only one or two or three users, that wouldn't change any of my dedication to the product.
All right. So pivoting over to Clear Skies,
Yes,
you are actually relatively recently became CTO
right,
of MGD Capital Investments.
correct, yes.
And this is, I guess, the let's call it the company that will distribute Clear Skies, and that's kind of the revenue stream that you will try to use to like get some back of all the effort that you put into Demonsaw.
Exactly. MGT it's not a new company, but just recently, John McAfee was appointed the CEO of MGT, and it's in fact they're in their proxy vote right now. So in about 2 weeks, the shareholders will vote John into that role.
Mm-hmm.
And John's a really good friend of mine, and John reached out to me a couple, I guess 2, 3 months ago now, and he said, Eijah, do you want do you want to join me in MGT? John's spoken about me very many many times in public, and he said some very very nice and gracious things about me and
Mm.
my skills, and it caused me to blush on many occasions. Um, but he said, he needs a strong CTO. He needs somebody who understands technology from a lot of different angles, who understands security, understands app development, understands distributed network development, understands artificial intelligence, understands the blockchain and Bitcoin, and who also has a hacker way of looking at the world.
Mm-hmm.
But to John, he wants a CTO who can code. And I would only want to be a CTO at a company who continues to respect my ability to code better than all my employees.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that to me is personally important. I understand that CTO has many, many different hats to play. In fact, my time will be divided and is divided now among many, many different things, many of which are not coding. But I'm a firm believer that any boss I report to, any lead that a programmer reports to, or any architect that a lead programmer reports to, needs to be able to outcode anybody, any of his direct reports, his or her direct reports. I believe that if to become a technical manager and lose our technical ability really hinders the entire organization. And this is something that Microsoft believed in, Apple believed in, Google believes in. A lot of these companies still believe in it. And we're founded on this principle of let your geeks be geeky. Don't force them to become something that they don't want to be, because you're only going to diminish their talent and you're only going to hurt the company. And John said, I want you a CTO, but I want you to be you still. And so I thought about it, and we talked a little bit more, and I said, it'd be an honor to work with John. It'd be an honor to lead his technology organization, and it'd be an honor to bring the Demonsaw tech into that deal and be able to take it to the next level. I started this journey on Demonsaw because I was frustrated with Dropbox, and I knew I could develop something that was better. And then it became a privacy journey. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized just how diminishing our privacy is across the world. And there's no country is to blame. Every country is to blame. And so it's not just the UK or the US. I mean, everywhere you look, privacy is diminishing for all the citizens of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We can cite examples in Germany. We can cite examples in Russia. I mean, Sweden, Norway. The list goes on and on and on. And when you look at it, once our privacy is gone, it's gone forever. And so producing something that protects our privacy is of key importance to me. And I realized how important that was for the future generations once we're gone. And so that's why I told John, I said, if by myself, if I work on Demonsaw just by myself and I own 100% of the IP and I make 4, 5, 6, all the way to Demonsaw 10 and beyond, maybe I influence 1 million people. Maybe I change 10 million lives. But if I partner with John McAfee and I bring in the Demonsaw technology and we build it into Clear Skies and other products, maybe I can reach 100 million people. Maybe I can reach 1 billion people. And so protecting that many people and safeguarding their privacy, I just couldn't resist that. And so sometimes by giving up control, we allow ourselves to achieve a greater goal. And that's really the definition for me of partnership. And that's why I decided to join John.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to follow this journey over the next couple of months and years. Another man, big name that you're associated with is Kim.com.
Yes, yeah, Kim.com, yeah.
Could you tell me a bit how that relationship came to be?
Well, Kim's always been, obviously Kim is a celebrity like John McAfee. Kim is Kim is a very distinguished, intelligent, visionary of technology
Mm-hmm.
from Mega Upload to or from Mega to Mega Upload and beyond. Kim's done things that he saw ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
and that's really the definition of a visionary. Smart guy, he's a fun guy. So I reached out to Kim about a year ago now, and we talked a little bit via Twitter. And as things just progressed with Demonsaw and with my relationship with John and MGT, I decided I was just going to go out and see him. I'd never been to New Zealand, and I thought, what the hell? I'll just go out. I'll fly out. I needed a few days, 3, 4 days of vacation. This was about 6 weeks before DEF CON. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess this was sometime mid-June, late June, don't quote me. But so I said, I need to get away for 3 days because that last 6 weeks before DEF CON is really hell. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's, it's really hell. So I got on a plane. I flew to New Zealand. 20 hours there, 24 hours back. I had no idea how long of a flight that was, and realized that was a lot longer than I thought. But I met Kim for the first time in person, and we hit it off really well. And so we continued our friendship that had started on Twitter. And he's a brilliant man. He's a brilliant man. He understands technology. He can see the future, and he and I share a lot in common. And so there's really kindred spirits between Kim and I, and also between John and I. There's a lot that I have in common with John, and there's a lot that I have in common with Kim. Some of it overlaps, some of it's different. But Kim and I started talking about, just where technology is going, where the future is going, and we both understand that we need to protect privacy and anonymity and the security of the individual more now than ever before. Now, Kim is an individual who has relationships with Steve Wozniak, with Edward Snowden, with Glenn Greenwald, with Kevin Mitnick, and others. And he's a he's a very smart guy, and he is also worried, like me and like John McAfee, about our diminishing privacy. And so Kim and I threw around a couple ideas about, well, is there an opportunity to collaborate somehow?
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes sometimes there is in life. Sometimes our friendships can create work opportunities, corporate opportunities, and sometimes they can't. But that's the thing about friendships, is that they provide access to resources and conduits for future conversations that we wouldn't otherwise have.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now there's no business relationship between me and Kim.com, and who knows if there ever will be. I mean, at this time I don't foresee anything, any sort of formal business dealings with him. But the friendship is enough, and if it doesn't, if nothing else evolves, the fact that he and I have a mutual respect and a mutual friendship is good enough, because um, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were able to have a business relationship early on in their career, and later on when Bill, saved Apple in what, the late '80s or late '90s or so. But sometimes that just doesn't materialize, and that's okay. Every friendship doesn't also have to be a business relationship, and so I'm comfortable with my friendship with Kim right now, and I'm comfortable with the absence of any sort of business dealings with him, because who knows what the future will bring 5, 10 years down the road. But the fact is, he's a smart guy. He understands the need to protect the individual, as does John McAfee, and as do I.
Was there anything that surprised you when you went to meet him? Was there anything like crazy that happened that you did there? Was there any big memorable experiences
Um,
that you can
well,
share?
you know, uh, that's a great question. The thing is that the funny thing is, the John and Kim and I have, I guess you could say, bigger than life personalities.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really sit down and you have a beer with me, or you have a beer with John, or you have a conversation with Kim or John, we're just normal people who are afraid that we're losing something critical to the human element. And we're afraid that we're being stripped of the things that make us unique and make life worth living. And so when you really remove all the outer shells of celebrity and interviews and the glamour that's put on us because of the limelight of the stage and all these other things,
Mm-hmm.
we're just normal people. And sitting down with Kim is like having a conversation with you right now. It's just two guys just chilling, talking about whatever, um, just kind of enjoying the time together. Obviously, he's a very well established. Kim is a very well established individual. He's a successful entrepreneur, and he's made a lot of money, and so he lives a life that reflects his success, his financial success, and his business success. Um, He's he it's it can be a bit surreal. Like he has a family crest, so he actually has a shield or a couple of shields that are hung up on his wall, and it's a big K, that's his family crest. And so there's some surreal elements about, he lives a very well life, and he deserves to live that because of his past success. But there are some things like that you're like, oh, he has a family crest. Um, there's other things such as, his entire suite. He lives excuse me, he lives in the penthouse of this sorry about that. I'm just getting over a cold.
No
He lives
problem.
in the penthouse of this building, and it's just a beautiful view over the wharf in New Zealand, and just absolutely stellar view. I'd be hard pressed to focus on my work with a view like that.
Well,
Um, but he focuses on his work, and so when it really comes down to it, no matter if we are just starting out, just graduated from high school and have no business experience, or whether we are successful entrepreneurs and businessmen like John McAfee or Kim.com. When it comes down to the moment, you put your head down and you work, and that's what impressed me most of all with Kim and with John, is they work harder than anybody else I've ever seen. John actually, as hard as I work, John works harder than I do. John sleeps less than I do, and that's why I respect him as my boss, because I would have it no other way. I would have a hard time respecting my boss if he didn't bust his ass as much or more than I do. And that's the same approach I take to the individuals that I lead and I direct. Is I'm going to be in the office at least 1 minute longer than they are.
hmm
I'm going to be putting in the extra time, and they'll understand and they'll learn, and a few years they'll be in a similar place. And so that, I think that was it. Maybe it shouldn't have been surprising to me, but it was great to see that you could be a multimillionaire, plus many millions, and still have that drive. When it comes down to it, you work your ass off without question, and you put all of your life on hold for your work. We see, Trump's doing it as well, and that's refreshing, because they're not resting on their laurels, and that energizes me and motivates me to push harder, and move forward. Maybe in the moments that I'm a little bit more inclined to uh, to relax. Those moments of weakness where you doubt,
hmm
you have those chaotic moments of, how the hell am I going to solve this? It's very easy to give up and go grab a couple beers and watch TV. And I'm reminded of my mentors, that in those moments of weakness, and it's like I said at my last DEF CON talk, it's in our moments of greatest weakness that we define ourselves as individuals. It's not when things are going well that that we work hard. It's when things are completely gone to shit
hmm
that we need to work hard and smile hard, and set a good example. It's when everything is the most difficult that we should be at our best.
Oh, that's extremely inspiring, and we've been talking for a while. So let's say this has been an extreme honor to talk to you. To slowly wrap it up, I would like to slow it down and kind of fade out the interview with a few even more, I guess, personal questions. So let's go ahead, and the first thing that I would like to know is, do you think that you are on the radar of some of the organizations that people are kind of afraid of nowadays?
Well, that's you know, I sure as hell hope I am. To be honest, because if I'm not, then no. I mean, obviously I'm partially joking, but here's the thing: is like, um, whether I'm put on the radar or not, my motivation is pure. My motivation is true. I'm doing this to protect individuals. There's no false pretense, or there's no secret motivation. I'm not a member of some sort of Masonic movement, or I'm not a member of the Illuminati, and I didn't help fake the moon landing, or, I mean, I'm just a normal guy who worked hard, who studied hard, who got a couple degrees, and who basically is focusing on becoming really, really good at what he does. But success brings with it um, a certain amount of darkness. Muhammad Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they mock you, then they attack you, and then you win.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea with this, and I honestly didn't understand this until I went through every phrase of what Gandhi was speaking about. Um, Coming up with an innovative new approach and a new idea and being the new kid on the block, um, at first they're going to totally ignore you, and then they're going to ridicule you. They're going to laugh at you, and then the next thing they do is that they do try to fight you. They try to attack you. They try to tear down the beautiful structure that you built,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that you do win because people start to realize, oh wait, he's genuine, he's honest, he built something beautiful. Something happened. I spoke about this on the crypto show with John McAfee about a week and a half ago now. At my DEF CON party a few weeks ago, I was approached by three NSA agents,
No way.
which, yeah, which was, and this is the first time to my knowledge that the NSA has approached me in 3 years of doing Demonsaw. Now, that just means to my knowledge.
Yeah.
They might have been around me, who knows, but I wasn't aware
Yeah.
until this moment where they came up and we spoke for about an hour, hour and a half. It was funny because they had a director that was there, an older gentleman who was clearly their boss. And he met me first. I didn't know he was NSA at first, but he just quickly introduced himself to me, said, "Okay, thanks, nice meeting you." And, almost it was very, very quick, almost a little too quick. And so I thought that was odd. And then his two Padawan, to use a Star Wars term, his two Padawans approached me. It was funny. They approached me when I was alone. They approached me. Of course, it was my party, so I was drinking a little,
Yeah.
enjoying the 3.0 launch. But
Yeah.
they approached me, and it was a very interesting conversation I had with them because they were very nice. They were probably in their mid to late 20s, and they were there by design. They had said they were just at DEF CON and just had heard of Demonsaw and just wanted to come to the party, but they were clearly there for a purpose. They had an agenda. They had a script. Everything was well orchestrated and rehearsed, and they wanted to vet me. They wanted to find out my motivations. They were looking to make sure that my motives were pure. That I wasn't a threat to national security, that I wasn't, conspiring with terrorist organizations
Mm-hmm.
or rogue agencies, which, both of which I am not. I'm a patriot. I'm a devout citizen of the U.S. and I abide by U.S. law. And but they were talking to me. It was funny because um, I think I caught them a little off guard because one of the first things I said to them is I said, before we begin, because I don't shy away from any conversation, even with the NSA. I said I want to make sure you understand how powerful I am and how good I am at what I do and how fast I iterate and make code. You need to understand how good I am at what I do. And they said, "Oh, we do. We
Mm-hmm.
know how good you are." And it was, but I wanted to clearly set the stage and control from that angle that, listen, I'm doing what I'm doing for the greater good. Um, they kept on asking me they kept on bringing me back to their psych approach. What they wanted to do is they wanted to get me to volunteer to meet with them. Uh, and so they kept coming back and saying, well, how can we achieve middle ground? They kept using this terminology of, well, how can we get to middle ground? So what they wanted to do was they wanted to know if I would be open to the discussion of, whatever middle ground meant. I mean, I don't know. I took it to mean like it's not unheard of that the NSA wants to provide backdoors, but I've
Mm-hmm.
been very vocal that I will absolutely never put a backdoor in. And if I'm ever asked to put a backdoor in, I will tweet the shit out of that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if I'm ever given a warrant or a subpoena, even if it requires my silence, the first thing I'll do is tweet it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, first thing I'll do is I'll violate the court order and I will tweet it, uh, and then I'll just suffer the consequences. And so they knew that, so they were using euphemisms. And so what I told them is I said, listen, I'm willing to have a dialogue about the state of privacy in our country, because what we can all agree on here is that we are concerned about nation states. We are concerned about terrorists
Yes.
and enemies external to our country. And this is the same thing whether you're a German citizen concerned about Russia or concerned about the Middle East, or you're a South Korean citizen concerned about North Korea or China. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we all are concerned about these external threats to our country. What we shouldn't be doing is treating our citizens as criminals or even having the capabilities to minimize the freedom of our citizens. That's my concern, is that do we even need to collect the metadata on our citizens? Well, they said, well, listen, if I ever searched your emails or any citizen's emails, I would military police would arrest me immediately. And I said, but that's not the point. The point is you shouldn't have the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point, is collecting the data is only going to result in the abuse of that data by the abuse of power and authority.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm concerned with isn't the fact that you would be arrested if you disobeyed. We shouldn't be collecting it at all. I want us to have strong borders. I want us to have a secure nation. I want us to be concerned about external threats and enable the technology to protect our country as we should as citizens and patriots. But what I don't want us to do is I don't want us to treat our citizens as the enemy. And and I'm tired of the FBI and the CIA and the NSA electing directors that are not technically competent.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't elect somebody as the NSA director or the FBI director just because they leveled up in the military for 20 years.
Mm.
It they should be elected to that post because they're competent in that role,
Yes.
not because of their rank. So what I told them is I said, I am glad to have a dialogue and a discussion with you at NSA headquarters. If you invite me to the NSA, I will show up and I will have an honest and genuine dialogue. And I will share with you my ideas on how we can improve this country and how we can end up in treating citizens less like terrorists and enabling our privacy to the next generation. But what I won't do is I won't backdoor my technology. I
Mm-hmm.
won't compromise my principles. And of course, they swore, no, we would never ask you to do that. So it was an interesting exchange, but conversations like that are important for every nation in the world. But it's also important for us to stand our ground as technologists and visionaries. If we don't, they're going to take the lazy and easy approach, and that is to put in a backdoor. Tim Cook once stood up a few months ago
Mm-hmm.
to the FBI and he said, no. He said, I'm not putting a hook into the OS. And he did the right thing. I greatly respect Tim Cook. If I'd love to meet him one day. It's important that smart people stand up when given the opportunity and say, no, enough's enough. But I'm willing to meet and have a real and honest, genuine conversation with you about how to improve the situation. But I won't compromise my principles or the principles of my company to achieve your goals, be it your lazy way of doing it. And so they were fine with that. So we'll see if they actually email me. But
If you get that
that's
invite.
yeah, I haven't gotten it yet, but I'll gladly tweet it when I do. I mean, I think those conversations are important. We shouldn't fear any branch of our government. What we should try to do is we should try to influence change in the right direction. Um, I think it's too late to change from the top down.
Mm.
I don't have lawyers. I don't have the money to pay for lobbyists like corporations do. What I can do is create amazing technology that changes the game from the bottom up. But when given the opportunity to have a smart dialogue, I'll gladly do it because who knows? Maybe I'll influence somebody someday by taking an hour out of my time and having an honest, genuine, vulnerable conversation about the things that are important to all of us.
Hmm. Do you? Uh, One thing that I find extremely interesting and hitting close to home is that when I find myself watching content on issues that if someone from the outside were to see me, you know, kind of consuming that type of media about maybe sensitive topics, it always kind of comes back to the premise that I would have to assume that these powerful structures with these capabilities have pure intentions as well. And you just kind of need to trust that. So I'm wondering if, from your experience with these people, Um, has your impression been that they just wanted to make sure that you are who you say you are, that you are a patriot, and that you are not don't have intentions of causing any harm?
Well, I think they can look at my track record. They can look at my history. I don't even have a parking ticket.
Hmm.
I've got literally a spotless record. Um, I think one can analyze all of my records and see a pattern of goodness.
Hmm.
I grew up in the church. I donated a lot of my time to charity. I do donate to charity. We just raised a bunch of money at DEF CON for the Electronic Frontier Foundation
Hmm.
through selling the Demonsaw shirts. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a good person. I mean, if one of the shows that I love on FX is The Americans about
Oh yeah.
hidden Russian spies in the 80s.
Oh, it's
And
awesome.
so there are people that I'm sure are able to establish an identity that's totally false. And I think that's why the NSA reaches out to people personally,
Hmm.
is to vet them, is to do some sort of psychological analysis of them too, to make sure they are legitimate and genuine. But I've never been afraid of that, and I'm not afraid of being approached. Um, as long as they understand that there's a line for me where I will go and where I will not go. I won't compromise my principles.
Hmm.
And and I hope that everybody listening can respect and identify with that. I will comply with my government's requests. I will uphold the law. I will do what's required of me as an American citizen living in America as the patriot that I am. But I won't compromise my principles, and I'm not going to compromise the security and the anonymity and the privacy of the people using Demonsaw either. And I'm very vocal about that. So maybe I'm a bit of an activist. Maybe I'm a little bit more of an activist than certain government branches would prefer.
Hmm.
But that's okay. I mean, like I said, no parking tickets. I do my job to uphold the law. But so and I'm comfortable with that, and John McAfee's comfortable with that as well.
All right, Eijah, last one. Have you are you familiar with Nick Bostrom?
No, I am not.
He's essentially, because you mentioned artificial intelligence a little while ago. He's the guy that came up with this simulation argument about that. Elon Musk is pretty big on that right now, talking about how there's a relatively big chance of reality being a simulation, and
Right.
so you've probably heard of that. And just to wrap it up, I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, so I did read the Elon Musk article. I like
Hmm.
Elon Musk. I respect him a lot. I see his balancing between SpaceX and Tesla.
Hmm.
I totally empathize his ability to balance between multiple roles, kind of like what I'm doing right now
Mm.
between Demonsaw and between MGT. Um, here's the thing about a simulation, and most people who play GTA 5 understand this. There's this saying in the industry that once you start programming video games, you never play a video game again. And unfortunately, that's more true than not. At least you don't play the genre of the games that you program. It's different if you're a designer or a tester.
Hmm.
All the programmers at Rockstar never played Rockstar games after they were built. Part of that was just, you're spending months and years working on them. You're a little burnt out from them. But when you write a video game and you're creating an illusion, everything you see in GTA 5 is an illusion. There is no substance at all. Even if what you saw rendered were real and were projected around you in 3D space, nothing that you see is real. In fact, here's how bad it is. Um, every car, every building, every lamppost, every stop sign is simply a mesh. So a mesh is just a collection of vertices. So points in space
Hmm.
linked together by lines. And literally, this if you remove all the images from the world, you see something that looks like a CAD drawing. And so as and then so you take all of these points and lines that are supposed to mimic the shapes of structures in our real life, and then you take bitmaps and you stretch them what's called blitting. You stretch them around these shapes
Mm-hmm.
in a three-dimensional space. And here's where it gets even crazier. There's this camera floating behind your main character.
Mm-hmm.
And this camera is like a little robot floating around. And based on where the camera is, it it renders a small subset of the world. So behind the camera, for the most part, nothing exists. There is there is void.
Mm-hmm.
In games like in open world games like GTA 5, some of the textures and the meshes will still be in memory in case you rotate the camera around quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But in a lot of scenes, like when you transition in missions and cutscenes, the entire world behind you is black. It's blacker than space. If space is not empty by any stretch, but there's nothing behind you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the absence of stuff. Then, if you understand the idea that there is no such thing as collision, there's no solid objects in GTA 5. Collision meshes have to be applied at certain XYZ coordinates throughout the world. So the whole concept of gravity and the entire concept, I mean, gravity is literally, taking your player and linking him to a plane. Uh, there's no such thing as gravity. Even with the physics engine, there's mathematical equations and physics equations for gravity, but literally there's nothing solid in GTA 5 at all. It's just meshes that are stretched on top of other meshes that are three-dimensional dot and line representations of what we view as physical objects in our known world.
Yeah.
Then then there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence in a game like GTA 5 is simply decision trees.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a tree-like structure with parent nodes and child nodes. And based on some sort of decision point, you transition to the left or the right. Sometimes it's random, sometimes it's not. So as you walk up to a guy who is a Jesus on the beach of GTA 5, his dialogue is random generated. It's not even real. He is simply randomizing across 1 to n different conversation points in his conversation wheel and playing that to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then his animations are just a sequence of mesh movements with sound and lip synchronization that are tied into that. So my point to all this, and by the way, missions that you go on in GTA 5 are just a bunch of scripts, are just I shouldn't say poorly, pretty much poorly written pseudocode that entry-level designers create
Mm-hmm.
that functionally, procedurally take you from if statement to if statement
Mm-hmm.
on the mission. So everything in GTA 5 is totally fake. So back to your original question, if we feel engrossed in a game that is so fraudulently faked and is well known that a game like GTA 5 is total fiction, and it fools our senses into feeling at times lifelike, especially on the PC GTA 5,
Mm-hmm.
then who's to say that a far superior being couldn't create a much more powerful real-time engine in which we find ourselves existing today? And I think back to your original question, if we in our limited intellect can go from Pong to GTA 5 in 4 decades,
Yeah.
then who's to say that 4 billion years of evolution by a superior life form can't easily generate our existence, which is probably comparable to their Pong if they had 4 billion years to work on it. So absolutely, I think it's plausible. Do I really think it's happening? To be honest, if they're that intelligent, I wouldn't be able to tell one way or the other. So, um, if if it is a virtual world, then it's a damn good one, and it's beautiful enough to keep our interest at least for the 70 to 100 years that we are gifted to exist in this sphere.
Yeah, and what an interesting time slot we chose to place these 70 years, eh?
Yeah, exactly,
E-
exactly.
Eijah, it was an immense honor to speak to you. This has been the most interesting talk I've had in a very long time with anyone. I want to thank you very much for taking the time, and I want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything that you want to get out there before we wrap it up?
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time and thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure to be on. And if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to me, there's a couple of ways that they can contact me. First of all, they can reach out on Twitter. My handle is demon_saw, so like demon saw, but just with an underscore. Or they can reach out to me via email at Eijah, that's EIJAH, at demonsaw.com. So the web address does not have an underscore, but my Twitter account does. Or they can find me on Demonsaw. I'm always on Demonsaw 3.0 and the 2.0 version. You can reach me there as well. So check out Demonsaw if you're interested. It's available at demonsaw.com. And thank you again. And I thank you again for supporting GTA 5.
All right, thanks, Eijah. Guys, this was a slight deviation from our normal program, but a very important one at that. So do check out Demonsaw. Do contact Eijah if you have any further questions. Check out the product, and I hope you guys enjoy. And we'll be back at the end of this week or the beginning of next with Mind Control's interview, the whole Dota 2 shuffle, and so on. Tweet at me what you think, and I'll see you all very soon. Peace out, guys.